It might be a dead period for some, but guess what? It's never a dead period over here at the Football Junkies podcast because you know why? We got collusion in the highest of the high places of the NFL, folks. That's right. It is a story that's not being talked about as much as being swept under the rug, but I am going to rip off the rug, burn it, and then cook hamburgers on it, all right? Because guess what? This is the 84th episode of the Football Junkies podcast, all right? I am your host with the most, all right? I am your chief bagrodominus. I'm your chief head of the table, anything and everything related to the bag and more. I'm your GM who currently is not on a team right now, but don't you worry about it because guess what? I'm your GM who is RSS.com affiliated, all right? That's right, folks. RSS.com affiliate over here with the Football Junkies podcast. Because guess what? We are working. While people are sleeping, we are still working. So guess what? I am all these things and more. But most importantly, the most important thing that you must remember is I am your host, Kale. Just know this episode is going to be a great episode. It's going to be an amazing episode. It's going to be an episode full of twists and turns. And yes, I will have transcripts. And yes, I will have time steps. So guess what? On three, 1, 2, 3. So excited. Let's lock in. All right, folks, let's just get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. And yes, even though there's not a whole lot of moves going on, we still have something that we have to talk about. There is a reason why I have not put out an episode, a full episode, in a while. Because you know why? I have been reading an arbitration report about a case between the Players Association and the NFL. Now, this is going to be a lengthy episode, but just know it's going to be an amazing episode, okay? For all the people that love to hear conspiracy theories and cases and whatnot, guess what? This is going to be the episode for you, all right? So, all the people that got your tinfoil, guess what? I want you to make the biggest tinfoil hat you can possibly think of because I have one that is the size of Texas on the top of my head right now. So, let's just get into it. So, there was a case alleging that the NFL and the owners colluded together to prevent guarantees for players, specifically large guarantees for players. And this all has to do with the aftermath of Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed contract. Now, for a lot of people, you're going to be learning a lot of new things. For others, this may be a refresher. So guess what? Classes in session. So this all started on October 19th, 2022, when the Players Association launched an arbitration against the NFL stating that it alleges the NFL had colluded with teams to quote-unquote restrict or limit fully guaranteed contracts. The purpose of this collusion stems from Deshaun Watson's 5-year, $230 million fully guaranteed contract. The Players Association alleges the NFL colluded against the contract negotiations of Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, and Lamar Jackson. During owners' meetings around August 9th of 2022, a high-ranking league official asked an owner to start a discussion with other owners to not agree on large, fully guaranteed contracts. The Players Association's grievance shifted to an owners' meeting in 2022. The NFLPA broadened its accusation of collusion to include the limit of veteran players receiving guaranteed contracts as well. Now, here are the people that are involved with this entire case. We have former Players Association President J.C. Tretter, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Roger Goodell, former NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith. You also have NFL and NFLMC executives Jeff Pash and Larry Ferrazzini, Eric DeCosta, John Mara, Jimmy Haslam, Michael Bidwell, Greg Painter, Steve Bisciotti, Robert Kraft, Arthur Blank, and Dean Spanos. Yes, you have a lot of high-ranking people that are involved in this case. Now, before we go, any further with this whole, case and whatnot, I just want to emphasize this. And this was something that I was talking to Mook and the rest of my friends about it once Deshaun Watson got his contract. I didn't have any credible sources, didn't have any information, but I knew The minute that the Browns gave Deshaun Watson that contract, it was going to open up Pandora's box. And the league was going to make sure that this would never happen again. But here is the thing that not a lot of people talk about. Technically speaking, Deshaun Watson wasn't the first person to get a fully guaranteed contract. It was actually Kirk Cousins. Now that we've dropped that bombshell for everybody, let's talk about the difference between a fully guaranteed and a non-fully guaranteed contract, because there is a distinct difference. So a fully guaranteed contract is when a player's compensation or a portion of his compensation is guaranteed in all three areas: skill, injury, and salary cap termination. That's fully guaranteed. Non-fully guaranteed is the opposite, when a player's compensation contains some guarantees for skill, injury, and/or salary cap termination. So with that being said, let's talk about everything else that comes with the fully guaranteed contracts. So the Players Association has tried to get fully guaranteed contracts twice. They tried with the CBA of 2011 and the CBA of 2020. But the argument the league has made within the last few years when it comes to giving their guaranteed contracts is due in part to the higher chance of injury compared to baseball and basketball players, as well as the NFL having a hard cap, unlike baseball and basketball, which is true. But if you're the owners and if you're the league, you should have at least attempted to create a formatted, fully guaranteed contract that will work for all players. Because we have seen multiple times players' careers just end because of one hit, one tackle, one sack, one interception, one catch. We've seen it multiple times. So why wouldn't you want to give them a fully guaranteed contract? That is something that I can agree with. Now, everything else that comes with this arbitration, I cannot agree with. So let's get into the nooks and crannies of it, all right? So this is what Arthur Blank had to say about the salary cap, and I quote, "The cap is a closed loop system. You get X number of dollars, and no matter what your personal wealth may be, it makes no difference. Every team has exactly the same salary cap, and you have to operate within that cap," end quote. Which is true. But here's something that not a lot of people know about. The salary cap is a culmination of all revenue from broadcast revenues, ticket sales, concessions, and other sources. Now here's the part that's for the players, which is called the players' cost amount. That is the revenue players are entitled to receive, which under the current CBA is 48.5%. Another term that gets floated around a whole lot, especially when a star player gets cut or traded, is dead money. So dead money is when a player with a guaranteed salary is cut. The remaining portion of that player's salary is counted against the cap. Another term that was brought up a lot in this arbitration was tranches, specifically tranches, period. And so there is a rule in place within the CBA where teams must satisfy a cash spending minimum for players, which currently is at least 90% of the salary, but is calculated within a 3 to 4 league year increment. So the recent tranches period was 2017 to 2020, and we're in one right now, and that is from 2024 to 2026. So as long as a team is spending within that period, they're fine. Now, if they don't, then you may have a problem. But let's get into some more pressing things about this case. So prior to 2021, the cap had been increasing from 10 to 12 million a year. But due to the pandemic, a mini CBA was adopted on August 3rd of 2020. Under the mini CBA, the 2020 cap was based on pre-COVID projected revenue, which remained at 198.2 million. But certain player benefits were either suspended or temporarily not funded. So I wouldn't call this breaking news, but this is a new development to this story. So according to ESPN's Don Van Natta Jr. and Kalen Kaler, the NFL and NFLPA have quietly agreed to seal this case from players. But here's the kicker though. According to ESPN, again, the NFL Players Association Executive Director Lloyd Howell Jr. is working as a paid part-time consultant for the Carlyle Group, which is one of the select groups that was approved by the league as a private equity firm that is now seeking minority ownership within NFL franchises. He joined the firm in March of 2023 prior to being elected as the NFL Players Association executive director. Folks, I don't want to be this person that's, conspiracy theorist and whatnot. That's not my role. At this point, I think the players need to come together, and I think they really need to blow this story up. Because right now, this is some next level bull. If you're a player, who do you run to? Who do you trust? If you're having a problem with your team, who do you go to? It's supposed to be the Players Association. Well, clearly that's not the case. The only way that true change is going to occur is that the players have to collectively come together and say, no, we are not going to do this. We are not going to stand for this. We are no longer going to allow you guys, the owners and the league, to continue to do what you've been doing for the past few years. Because the Players Association is supposed to be a representation of the players. It's not supposed to be the lapdog of the NFL. And that's basically what it's become at this point. So why in the world has nobody, not one player, said anything about this? Because prior to the new executive director being hired, neither Gene Upshaw or DeMaurice Smith were allowed to be paid for outside work. So then why in the blue hell is the new executive director allowed to do this? At some point, someone's going to have to show that they have balls. Because right now, I don't see it. I don't see any. And you want to know what makes things worse? A union lawyer asked Howell to consider resigning from the private equity firm to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest within the firm in taking ownership of an NFL franchise. And you know what he did? He declined it. So you mean to tell me he is still actively a part of a private equity firm that could possibly try to get a stake within an NFL team while being the executive director of the Players Association? That is a conflict of interest. That is something that you cannot do. I don't care if this is for the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, whatever. This cannot stand. This cannot be allowed to happen. And the players need to know about this. Because I guarantee you they pay some form of dues every single month that goes to the Players Association. So why in the world would I want to be continuing to pay these dues when I'm not getting representation? When I don't have anybody that's standing up for me? At this point, it is going to take every single player. I'm talking about players who are on the practice squad, players who are on the main roster, the superstars. Everyone is going to have to say, you know what, we're going to hold out. We're going to hold out until we get a fair shake at the table. Because we are the reason why everybody wants to put butts in seats. We are the reason why people wear our jerseys. We are the reason why people wear the hats. We are the reason that people make time to watch the games that we play. We are the reason why the league is successful right now. That has to happen immediately. And I understand that that is a very dangerous move to make, and it can have serious implications, and it can cause a lot of people to lose a lot of money. I understand that. But guess what? If the players come together, only real change will occur. Until then, the players will never have a leg to stand when it comes to these high meetings. Anything that the league wants, they can do, because you know why? They understand that the highest ranking person within the Players Association is in their back pocket. And he is not going to have the balls to say, you know what? We can't do that. Because you know why? He has his own interest in trying to acquire a stake within the team. If this ain't some next level BS, I don't know what is, man. I don't know what is. But let's get back to everything else. So in 2021, every team was accounted for a payment of $4 million in deferred benefit payments from 2020. $11 million in benefits were restored to make up for benefit spending that was once deferred during the pandemic as well. Moving forward, there is something that we need to talk about, and this is a group that I didn't even know existed until I read this document, and that is the NFL Management Council, which is a group of owners who oversee the operation of the Management Council and engage in collective bargaining with the NFLPA and advise other owners on quote unquote labor relation issues. Since 2012, John Mara, owner of the Giants, has been the presiding chairman of the CEC. Now, this is what John Mara had to say about the role of the CEC and the NFLMC, and I quote, "It is to educate the clubs as to what the trends are out there so that the clubs can make their own decisions about how to handle their cap going forward." End quote. Between December and March, the NFLMC makes presentations at many league meetings to discuss the operation of the CBA and quote unquote factors that are in play. Now, here is an email exchange between Roger Goodell and Mr. Pash shortly after Deshaun Watson's contract, and I quote, "We discussed guarantees, signing bonus commitments, etc. on Thursday and Friday. What we don't know yet is whether we are seeing what we saw the last 2 years where the very top players, for example, Miller, Rodgers, Stafford, Watson, got large guarantees, but many other players, second tier free agents and below, signed much more club friendly deals. As the top of the market clears and the next tier starts to sign, we will have a better sense of whether the large guarantees are extending further into the free agent pool and also how they are affecting club deals with their own players. It is certainly something that we will want to discuss at both the football ops sessions and with owners as well." This is Roger Goodell's response. Agreed, but the tip of the market is most of the dollars, and if we wait to see how it falls, it will be too late to counter. Agree with raising with a big concern that this will erode a key aspect of our CBA that resisted guaranteed money except as clubs determined own. This is what Mr. Pash had to say. "We will definitely be prepared to raise it and make sure that people are focused. The next tier of signings is generally slower as of course you know, so I think we will be ahead of it when we speak to the clubs." End quote. If this isn't collusion, I don't know what is. I knew that Deshaun Watson's contract was going to have a negative effect on the league, but I didn't expect for it to be this bad. I didn't expect for the league to say, you know what, we are going to make sure that nobody gets high guarantees. Why wouldn't you want that? The NFL right now is in a place where it's making so much money, it's blowing people's mind. You are talking about a league that is far surpassing the amount of revenue that they're bringing each and every season. You're talking about a league, by the way, legitimately taking over the NBA spot when it comes to the holidays. Because remember, there was a point in time where the NFL really wasn't the best during the holidays. We all knew that crappy Thanksgiving game where it was most likely the Cowboys and the Lions, or it was the Cowboys and the Washington team at that time, or it was just really two bad teams, right? And then Christmas, you know, they may do something a little bit special. New Year's, they might do a little something a little bit special as well. But now that's changed. The Thanksgiving games are amazing now. They have a Black Friday game, as well as Christmas games and New Year's Eve games. And mind you, they're doing this on platforms such as Amazon Prime and Netflix. So I don't see why there's such a group effort to make sure that players don't get guaranteed money. It's important and imperative that players get guaranteed money because that is the only money that they are for sure guaranteed to get if they get injured, cut, traded, whatever the case may be. What sense does that make? Why isn't this being talked about as much? And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but when you continue to read this document, it just makes you more and more frustrated because we are seeing a system-wide effort of collusion from Roger Goodell all the way down to the Players Association that is going to prevent players from getting guaranteed contracts when they need guaranteed contracts because of the sport that they play. How many times every single season do we see somebody tear their ACL, tear their Achilles, break an arm, dislocate their shoulder, get a concussion, get a very serious injury where they have to be, put on the back of a stretcher or something. How many times do we see that? And how many times do those players have guaranteed money? Not a lot of them. But here's something else that's crazy. The presenter notes found that if guarantees continue to grow in the amount of players, then there's a risk that it becomes the norm in future contracts regardless of players' quality. So if you're a journeyman, your guarantees are going to be a little bit higher. If you're a star player, your guarantees are going to be a little bit higher. If you're somebody that's on the practice squad or an undrafted free agent, your guarantees are going to be a little bit higher. That's what that basically means. But they emphasize that all clubs must make their own decisions, but continuing these trends can handcuff a club in the future. Now we're about to get to the good part. So this is what the owners had to say about Deshaun Watson's extension. This is what Steve Bisciotti, owner of the Ravens, had to say, and I quote, "It's like, damn, I wish they hadn't guaranteed the whole contract. I don't know that Watson should have been the first guy to get a fully guaranteed contract. To me, that's something that's groundbreaking and it'll make negotiations hard with others. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to play that game, We shall see," end quote. This is what Arthur Bling had to say about Deshaun Watson's contract. And I quote, "You have to leave that to the Haslams, the owners of the Browns, to make their own judgment. The fact that it's $80 million above the highest contract ever guaranteed in the history of the league, that's 102 years old, says a lot. Whether or not most teams in the NFL or any other team would have committed to that, I don't know. It's certainly a huge commitment," end quote. But here's the thing, though. Weren't you the same owner that was in the sweepstakes of getting Deshaun Watson? See, I want everybody to remember this, right? During that whole Deshaun Watson trade debacle, once it got down to the nitty gritty, once a lot of the teams were eliminated and it was just between the Falcons and the Browns, Deshaun Watson posted a picture of wearing Falcons gear. It was an old Falcons varsity jacket. And everyone was thinking, oh, he's going to go to the Falcons. But then come to find out, the Falcons didn't want to give him the money that he was looking for. And so eventually he went to the Browns. But this is the same owner who had an opportunity to get Lamar Jackson, and he didn't want to get Lamar Jackson because of his playing style and the money that he was looking for. Man, get out of here. Get out of here with this foolishness. Now, this is what John Mara had to say about the presentation, and I quote, "Beware of the fact that the more signing bonuses you pay, the less flexibility you're going to have to manage your roster," end quote. Many owners who testified have denied participation or being aware of colluding together to reduce guarantees after the March 2022 meeting. Now, this is what John Mara had to say, which, believe it or not, this is probably the most that I've ever heard him say anything. He is a man that does not speak a whole lot, I guess. I don't know. But this is what he had to say on the competitive nature of the league, and I quote, "I'm not going to be told what to do in terms of individual player contracts by anybody from Management Council or by anybody from another club," end quote. He further explains by saying this, and I quote, "Just the thought of me calling Jerry Jones or somebody and asking him not to guarantee Dak Prescott's contract or somebody else's contract, he would laugh at me, among other choice words, I'm sure. Just the whole notion is ridiculous. We're out here to win games, and we're going to do whatever we can to improve our teams. And if that means give more guarantees, we're going to give more guarantees. It doesn't always work that way, unfortunately. Sometimes guarantees end up hurting you in the end, but you have to make your own decisions. And the thought that I'm going to be influenced by what another owner is saying to me is just absurd." Now, he is right with some of the things that he's saying. However, Jerry Jones is probably the best example to go with this situation because Jerry Jones sometimes overpays his players. We all know that Jerry Jones loves his players, the players that he drafted, not free agents, the players that he drafts. And we have seen multiple times within the last 5 years that he goes above and beyond with his players, from the Zeke Elliott contract to Dak's contract, CeeDee Lamb's, and possibly Micah Parsons. We've seen it. But one has to be a little bit lenient when it comes to the guarantees. because you don't want to give a player these crazy guarantees and then something crazy happens and now you're stuck with all this dead money because you still have to pay him because it's guaranteed money. So I understand where John Mara is coming from a little bit. However, it still does not dictate the decision to collude together on preventing large guarantees. Now, here is the part where we're all going to love. We're going to get to the players. So, the first case is Russell Wilson, all right? So, during his negotiations with the Broncos, Russell Wilson wanted a 7-year fully guaranteed contract around $50 million a year. Now, this is what Russell Wilson had to say about his negotiations with the Broncos, and I quote, "They kept saying, we'll do whatever it takes, we'll do whatever it takes. However, after he waived his no trade clause and his trade to the Broncos became public, I would say shortly after, maybe within the next 10 days or so, they started getting cold feet on doing his fully guaranteed thing." End quote. So after trading for Russell Wilson, the Broncos changed ownership, which delayed Russell Wilson from signing, which is true. But here's the part where things get a little bit sticky. So Mr. Penner's handwritten notes showed that he questioned the urgency of a contract extension. He wrote, 2 years left on the contract? Why not wait? But during negotiations, Russell Wilson chose to submit a non-fully guaranteed offer to the Broncos, though he testified that he considered it to be effectively fully guaranteed. But talking points within the Broncos ownership indicated that the Broncos believed that they had quote-unquote leverage in Russell Wilson's negotiations. And so somebody noted that they did not foresee any of the owners of teams with top quarterbacks with upcoming deals matching or exceeding Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed contract. But here's a junkie nugget. Russell Wilson had 2 years left on a pre-existing deal with the Seahawks. And with the Broncos making this move, they wanted to make sure that they signed him to a new contract because they didn't want a disgruntled quarterback. Russell Wilson also testified and said that the Broncos communicated to him that it was effectively a fully guaranteed contract, which in some ways they sort of lied, right? And so we all know the results. September 1st, 2022, Russell Wilson signs a 5-year, $245 million deal, $124 million fully guaranteed at signing. So with this situation number one, of course, it's a little bit weird because during that time, the Broncos was going through a change of ownership. And so, they had to wait for that to be approved and whatnot. And you had Russell Wilson and then that whole debacle in itself and then the trade and then the contract and whatnot. So a lot of moving parts. Definitely didn't expect the Broncos guaranteed contract, especially at that time. I mean, sure, he was still an elite quarterback, but I mean, come on now. See, this whole situation is just a very slippery slope, okay? Now let's go to the Kyler Murray situation, all right? So after Kyler Murray's third season, Eric Burkhart, which is his agent, started exploring the possibility of an extension, which that's normal. He submitted an offer on February 17th, 2022, prior to Deshaun Watson signing his extension. Shortly after that, on March 24th, 2022, he withdrew the offer due to the Cardinals, and I quote, unresponsiveness to Kyler's proposal that was made over 5 weeks ago, end quote. Both his agent and Kyler Murray wanted a fully guaranteed contract. Here's a text exchange between Michael Bidwell, owner of the Cardinals, and his GM at the time, Mr. Keim, about the whole Kyler Murray negotiations. And I quote, "We are going to load up this contract with so many incentives to earn the real money," end quote. Now, Mr. Keim responded, referring to Deshaun Watson's contract at the time, and I quote, "Why the Browns felt so compelled to pay Watson like that is just baffling," end quote. Come on, guys. Just come on. Now, Mr. Keim let Burkhart know that a fully guaranteed contract was not going to happen. Kyler Murray valued the compensation per year, which is the APY, under his new deal. So, time passes, and then on July of 2022, Kyler Murray signs a 5-year, $230.5 million deal, $103.3 million fully guaranteed, and he will be making $46.1 million a year at that time. Now here's a junkie nugget about this whole debacle. He further explains that the Cardinals communicated to Mr. Burkhart that Mr. Murray was still under contract for 2 additional seasons, even without before any franchise tag designations. This is what they're saying. This is not what I'm saying. This is what they're saying. And therefore, they had leverage and did not want to sign a contract that would negatively impact their roster flexibility, particularly because Mr. Murray is a relatively small quarterback compared with others in the league. That's how they feel about you. Now, here is a text exchange between Michael Bidwell, owner of the Cardinals, and Dean Spanos, owner of the Chargers, on July 22nd of 2022. Dean Spanos says, "Congratulations on signing Murray." Michael Bidwell replies and says, "Thanks, Dino. These quarterback deals are expensive, but we limited the fully guaranteed money and have some pretty good language. Thankfully, we have a quarterback that's worth paying." Dean Spanos says, "Your deal will help us for our quarterback next year." Michael Bidwell replies and says, "I think many teams will be happy with it once they have a chance to review. Cleveland really screwed things up. I was resolved to keep the guaranteed relatively, and I quote, low," end quote. That simple exchange between two owners lets you know how some of them feel about their players, their star players. Let's continue to move forward before I go on another rant. So this is the Lamar Jackson situation, and this one's a pretty juicy one, all right? So Eric DeCosta, GM of the Ravens currently, testified that he wasn't opposed to giving out a fully guaranteed contract to Lamar, but they, and I quote, "have to be pushed out to later years," end quote. DeCosta stated Lamar Jackson's playing style, being a running quarterback, and having some injuries are some of the reasons he wanted to minimize guarantees within the 5th and 6th year of contracts. In 2022, during contract negotiations, Lamar Jackson had informed Eric DeCosta that he wanted a fully guaranteed contract at the time. Eric DeCosta knew that the contract was important to Lamar. After multiple offers, Lamar Jackson informed Eric DeCosta that he would rather play under his 5th-year option. Lamar Jackson texted Eric DeCosta, and I quote, "I'm going to request a fully guaranteed contract. I understand you all don't, and that's fine," end quote. So after the 2022-2023 season, Lamar and DeCosta restarted contract talks, and DeCosta offered Lamar 2 different 3-year deals that were considered fully guaranteed. During these negotiations, Lamar stated that his mic on his phone wasn't working, which made communication difficult. EDC asked Lamar if he would be interested in being traded to, but was never given a list. Prior to the Ravens franchising Lamar, a few teams expressed interest in Lamar, but no teams reached out to Lamar directly. Pardon the interruption, but this is your GM. You're a bad girl, Damas, here to talk about RSS.com, all right? So if you guys already don't know, I am a RSS.com affiliate, and so I just want to tell you for just a quick moment about why you should choose RSS.com. So me personally, on my journey of podcasting, I was looking at different platforms just to find the right place. And I looked here, I looked there, I looked everywhere, but I checked out RSS.com, and it was the best decision I ever made. From low prices to interactive analytics to as well as helping you with your distribution. RSS.com does it all. Not to mention, they just started a Slack channel where you can network and interact with other podcasters and even get some insightful tips on how you can increase your podcast even more. So head on over to RSS.com. I will be attaching my RSS affiliate link within the description. When you click on that link, I will be able to receive some compensation for it. And with that compensation, I will be able to give you guys a better product. A lot of that money will go towards upgrading the microphones, computers, new subscriptions for more analytical information that we can use for future podcasts, all of that and more. Thank you for your support, and thank you RSS.com for making me an affiliate. Now back to the good stuff. So Steve Bisciotti, owner of the Ravens, believed the reason teams weren't really interested in Lamar was due to some teams already having a quarterback. Teams were interested in the size of the contract Lamar was looking for, and or they didn't have any money to pay into the league's escrow account, which is required by the CPA. Now this is known as the funding rule, which the league maintains an escrow account in which teams must future year contracts that are guaranteed for skill-related terminations. While under the non-exclusive franchise tag, any team who would have acquired Lamar would have had to give the Ravens 2 first-round picks. Arthur Blank, owner of the Falcons, which we talked about earlier in the episode, testified the reason the Falcons weren't interested in acquiring Lamar was due in part to Lamar Jackson's injuries, and keeping their quarterback would provide more cap flexibility than pursuing Lamar. Think about this for a second here, folks. Here you have someone in Lamar Jackson who is a spitting image of Michael Vick, a better passer than Michael Vick, possibly a faster player than Michael Vick. All you have to do is give up 2 first-round picks and give him some new money. And instead of you doing that, you decide and say, you know what? Nah, I don't really want that. I don't really need that. And instead, you decide to go through a carousel of quarterbacks. And now you have what? Michael Penix and you have Kirk Cousins, who, by the way, continues to say that, he doesn't want to be a part of the Falcons anymore because the Falcons, quote unquote, screwed him and everything. So it's just crazy to me, It really is how the Falcons just continue to just fall on their own sword every single chance that they get. But hey, it's the Falcons, right? They choked the 28-3 lead. Remember that, Falcons fans? Remember that choke artist? Remember that 28-3? Remember that? You remember that? I know you do. But moving forward, so as Eric DeCosta was preparing for the 2023 draft, he sent an offer to Lamar in which he accepted and signed a 5-year, $260 million deal, $135 million guaranteed, with a $72.5 million signing bonus. So here's the thing with this. And we're starting to see a trend within the last 2 situations. Well, actually, last 2 situations. All 3 of these players wanted fully guaranteed contracts at first. And all 3 of the teams said no. And they stood on their ground for a long period of time until the players said, you know what, forget about it. Just send me an offer and we'll just sign it. Now, for Lamar's situation, in some ways, I could understand why they probably didn't want to give him a fully guaranteed just because of his playing style and whatnot. But even then, he has been much more healthier now than he was probably the first 3 or 4 years of his career, because now he knows, okay, listen, this is the playing way that I like to play at, and he knows exactly the process that he has to go through in order to be the best version of himself when he's on the field, which is fine. But here's the thing that I will say, and this is a conversation that I've had with friends. The only other positions that I would give a fully guaranteed contract to is a kicker and a punter. Because why? Their salaries aren't high. So you can give a fully guaranteed to Chris Boswell or Sam Coach or whomever and not lose the interest league, because you know why? For one, they're going to be part of the team probably for the rest of their career. You won't have to give them, 20 or 30 plus million. You could probably give them 12, maybe 13 at best. That's not bad. That's actually really good money. But at some point, I feel like the league and the players need to come together. They need to sit down. They need to hash this out and try to find a way to make a format that is beneficial for both the owners and the players, that is structured as a fully guaranteed contract. Now, if it means that they get probably 50 to 60% of their money in signing bonus, and then their base salary is maybe, I don't know, 8-9 million a year, okay, fine. I think somebody will be willing to do that. Because right now, the current contract format really isn't the best. Now, granted, yes, we can look at the Browns prior to acquiring Deshaun Watson and now, and we can all agree that right now, their cap situation is in hell. But that's because of the amount of money that they've had to give him. I think if you give, I don't know, AJ Brown a deal where he's making 30 plus million a year, but a majority of that money is in the signing bonus or some type of format, I think you can make it work. Compared to, they make up this contract and a majority of his guaranteed money is on the back end of the deal instead of in the front of the deal. The point that I'm trying to make with all of this is that it can be done. It's just you have the owners that just have their head up their asses that don't want to do that. And for whatever reason, I don't know why. You guys are making a boatload of money. The league is making a boatload of money. You have to do right by the players. The players are the reason why you guys are able to live the lives that you're able to live. Remember that. Now let's talk about some more conflict. And this is between Robert Kraft and DeMaurice Smith. So the former NFLPA exec DeMaurice Smith testified stating that Robert Kraft, owner of the Patriots, raised the issue of Watson's fully guaranteed contract during a conversation in the summer of 2022. Now here is the conversation between the two. Mr. Smith stated, and I quote, "I just remember him," talking about Mr. Kraft, saying, "You know, Roger has asked me to talk about guaranteed contracts at an owners meeting," end quote. He also testifies and says that Mr. Kraft told him that he was asked to raise the guaranteed contracts, and I quote, "were a problem." This is what they're saying. This is not what I'm saying. This is what they're saying. This is how they type the things out in this report. I know, weird. But during Lamar Jackson's contract negotiations, DeMaurice Smith emailed Lamar and advised him to, and I quote, "stand firm in his demand for a fully guaranteed contract because he's entitled to the largest fully guaranteed contract of all time," end quote. Now, Roger Goodell denies having discussions with Robert Kraft about guaranteed compensation and or having any conversations with owners about the issue. DeMaurice Smith reached out to Robert Kraft on April 11th of 2023 saying hello. Robert Kraft responded by saying, and I quote, "always felt we had a special relationship. Disappointed to hear false claim attributed to you about me relating to guaranteed contracts," end quote. The arbitrator found Roger Goodell didn't ask Robert Kraft or any owners about guaranteed contracts in August of 2022 or any other time. So my takeaway from this entire report is that although the arbitrator says Roger Goodell did not have a direct hand within the group effort by the owners to prevent large guarantees on players' contracts, I still believe that Roger Goodell had a hand to play in it in some way. Now, whether that be an off-the-record conversation with the owners, whether it be, they're in a small little room that's probably with low lighting and, everyone's phones is out and whatnot, they're probably turned off and everything, and they probably had a conversation. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But this just shows you how this was a system-wide effort to prevent players from getting large guarantees as well as getting fully guaranteed contracts. If you're a player, what do you do at this point? Who do you go to? Who do you trust? No one. If you can't trust the Players Association to fight for you, you don't have a leg to stand on. And it sucks because we know within the coming years, they're going to want to add another game to the season. They've already said that. And they're trying to expand this whole international game project that they've been working on for the past few years. That's going to take a toll on people's bodies. But guess what? You don't have a players union that can fight for you. You don't have a players union that's going to tell the league, hey, listen, if we're going to do a game in Australia, then the players need at least a week or two in order to get used to everything. Because they're going to go through jet lag and exhaustion and getting prepared for the time zone difference and all of those things. Even if the field conditions are right for the players. All of those things is what the Players Association is supposed to do for the players. And the fact that you have leadership that is as corrupt as they possibly can be is a slap in the face to every single player. I'm going to link Pablo Torres's and Mike Florio's episode of this entire case. I'm going to link it in the description so you guys can go and you can watch and see for yourself. Because they do of a more deeper dive into everything because, they have sources. and within the NFL and NFLPA, so they can do more of a deeper dive of everything, so you can understand it a little bit better. But I'm gonna end this episode here. If you guys like what you're listening, please make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, turn the notification bell on. Leave a comment down below for my YouTube people, and for my audio listeners, make sure you download the episode, share the episode with somebody, and make sure you guys leave a 5-star review on anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts. All right, make sure you guys leave a review, please. I really do appreciate if you guys leave a review. All right, for my YouTube people, Football Junkies Pod. All right, Football Junkies Pod. When you go on our YouTube, we have a link tree. When you click on that link tree, it will take you to anywhere and everywhere that we have Football Junkies content, whether it be on our Instagram, our TikTok, our Blue Sky, Twitter, and even our RSS.com affiliate link. All right, now for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod. All right, Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is not what? It is together, not spaced. All right, it is together, not space. Football_Junkies Pod. Now for my TikTok people, Football Junkies Pod. All right, Football Junkies Pod. I'm going to make sure that I start posting more content over there because I'm seeing that you guys like it. So I gotta feed the people because I am a man of the people. All right, for my Blue Sky people, you can follow me on there, GM Kale. All right, GM Kaile. It's the same thing with X. All right, GM Kale, Kaile. As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I had to get this episode out before I do any other future episodes. So guess what? Once this is out, I got to get ready for gut check time. That's right, folks, because by then we will have at least a few teams reporting for training camp. So we have to talk about some battles that I'm going to be keeping my eye on, some headlines that are going to be talked about with some of these teams, all of that and more. So stay tuned. As always, this is your GM Kill signing out. Peace and love. Later.